17th of September 2023. In this news flash I'm going to talk about Ukraine. Now, those that follow my channel will know I've asked the question many times. What exactly is the West trying to achieve in Ukraine? Or what are they trying to hide in Ukraine? Because if you look at it objectively, there's no sense in the West and Europe specifically disarming themselves to help Ukraine, and then the vast amounts of money that is being pouring into Ukraine. That money comes from the citizens of the different countries. And those citizens are suffering tremendously under the boomerang effect of the sanctions war against Russia. But that Politburo sitting in Brussels, the EU Politburo, has got Europe totally in their grip, and they have assumed a hell of a lot of powers that they're not supposed to have. And they are implementing things that is not supposed to be implemented by Brussels. But they just go on. Same thing in America. Those newcons in the shithouse doesn't care how the population of America is affected by what they are doing, just as long as they can do what they think is the right thing. But I don't think they think that's the right thing. They're hiding something in Ukraine. Now there are hints. We've heard the stories about the biolabs, we've heard the stories about the organ transplantation, we've heard the story about the organ harvesting, we've heard the stories about the human trafficking, we heard the stories about the pedophile supplies that comes from Ukraine, we've heard the stories that Ukraine is a breeding box for the West in surrogate pregnancies, and then those Western buyers don't pitch up to pick up the babies, and those babies are being used for organs and for adrenochrome and all of that. We've heard all those stories. And then there's the story of the Western global corporations that are buying up all the agricultural land and all the industrial capacity in Ukraine, all of that. But it doesn't make sense, because Ukraine is collapsing. And now what I want to understand is the Western global companies buying all the Ukraine agricultural land, but the warmongers provide the Ukraine with cluster ammunition and depleted uranium ammunition. They're poisoning the land, and they are strewing it with cluster ammunitions. So those things doesn't make sense to me. But then I saw this tweet from Ray J Politics. This guy does good tweets and he gives good analysis. Listen to him. My God, a crap load of Western equipment and Nazi lives are being pissed away. What you are witnessing in Ukraine is literally a preview of what NATO would look like as a fighting force, and if they ever fought a real war, which will never happen. NATO illegally engaged in offensive actions in Bosnia in 1994, Serbia in 1999, and unbelievably in the African nation of Libya in 2011. All of these NATO engagements were against their own defense-only charter. All three of these opponents were extremely weak opponents militarily and had very limited weapons reproduction capacity. And you must understand, the destruction in Libya was mind-blowing. And then what they did in Bosnia and Serbia with the depleted uranium ammunitions is absolutely criminal, basically. And today we see the babies born with nauseating deformities. But the West hides behind their own created firewall. They are never called out on what they do. 32 nations, 32 languages, 32 weapon packages. Ukraine has been flooded with machines of war from all over NATO alliance. Most of these weapons operate differently, use different ammunition, requires equipment-specific maintenance, and controls are labeled in different languages. The Ukrainian armed forces are getting absolutely crushed on the Zaporizhia and Artemovsk fronts. I honestly believe that the UAF, having this hodgepodge of different weapon systems, is some of the reason why they are losing so badly. Dead bodies of Ukrainian soldiers in the burnt out husks of various types of NATO vehicles are everywhere along the front. And what he says makes a lot of sense. And I have seen articles and videos of Ukrainian soldiers complaining about the weapon systems and things like that. A new method of recruitment. I'm seeing more and more videos of SBU goons chasing down men in the street of Ukrainian cities, tackling them and violently throwing them into the side doors of minivans. What in the hell kind of war is this? More and more foreign mercenaries willing to give their lives for Nazism are now fleeing Ukraine. A common complaint from these mercenaries, the ones who survive, is not that the war is horrific, but more so that the Ukrainians are treating them so badly. Last year there were accounts of black soldiers who went to fight in Ukraine that were physically abused and called racial slurs by these Ukrainians. In any event, the foreign mercenary recruitment dropped by 70% over the past 3 months. And I've just recently saw some articles about mercenaries that went back to England and were telling how horrible and horrific it's going on the front. And there is now articles of Russian soldiers picking up mercenaries that seems to have been executed. Their hands are tied behind their backs and things. So there's something seriously wrong there in the Ukraine, but the Western media beats the population of the West into obedience and compliance. As usual, the simple-minded Ukrainians have screwed themselves. Since the Ukrainians cannot win on the battlefield with their vaunted counter-offensive, they attacked the civilian bridge by these buffoons performing yet another attack on the Kerch Bridge. 1. Russia suspended its participation in the grain deal until it meets Russia's terms. 2. Russia issued a public shipping warning to all shipping in the Black Sea going to or leaving from any Ukrainian port. Russia suspects that Ukraine has been using shipping to bring in weapons. 3. Russia's armed forces launched massive cruise missile strikes, Tu-22M strikes, naval strikes, and hordes of drones against the port of Odessa. But the West, the media tells you Ukraine is winning. My own pet Nazi is, again this past 2 days, all over my case about how the Ukrainians are absolutely pulverizing the Russians, and the Russians are deserting, and the Russians don't have food, and the Russians are killing one another, and Putin is killing the Russian generals and shit like that. It's been going on But I have heard rumors that he has been appointed as the EFF Chief of Information Officer. So I take what he throws at me and I look at it and I just smile. Basically, the Ukrainians have just made themselves a landlocked nation for the first time in centuries overnight. This will devastate their already feeble economy, making them even more of a welfare nation. Can you fix stupid? Maybe you can fix stupid. No, you just can't fix stupid. And I agree with him 100% on that. The reality is, the media is telling us a story, and then there is a whole horde of so-called independent guys that is absolutely bleating out the narrative of the West. Obviously they're getting financial support and things from it, but the fact of the matter is, on the ground, I've read an article last night where I think it was a Spanish reporter that spent time in the Donbass, and he agrees with the estimates that many of the analysts are making, that at this point in time, the kill rate on the front is 1 to 10. For every 1 Russian, 10 Ukrainians die. Now I see videos of old people being forced into service, crippled people, sick people, mentally disabled people are being, and women. And then last night I saw this absolute horror fucking article in which they are demonstrating body armor for pregnant women. What the fuck is that? But you, Western taxpayers, Western citizens, you are allowing that warmongering idiots that is in charge of your countries to do this. I look at this and I think to myself, the political leadership of the West, it seems to me that they have decided the African model is the perfect model to follow. And the population went ahead and they selected people of half the IQ of the average of the nation, and those are their leadership. But in any case, I am looking at these things and I'm just reporting. You can think about it, make of it what you like, but the fact of the matter is, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians is dead and more is going to die, and all that weapons that are being thrown in there is, the Russians turn them into scrap metal as fast as they arrive. Where is the West going to find the money to make up for the losses? I see the Americans are now up to 1 million rounds, or what? Yeah, they aim for 1 million rounds of that 155 ammunition per month in 2025. What the fuck is that? At this point in time, the Ukrainians use more ammunition in one day than what the West can produce in a month. And of course, you all must have seen they're got their knickers in knots about Russia and North Korea. I read an article last night in which the guys reckon that North Korea has got in stock weapons and ammunition to arm 8 million soldiers for 6 years. Think about that. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. And I want to thank the people that are supporting the channel financially. I really appreciate it. Thank you.